Coming to you from UBN Studios in Burbank, California. You are listening to the Unsugarcoated Podcast with your host, Alia Lanius.
Hey, what is up, everybody? This is another episode of Unsugarcoated with Alia, your favorite social good podcast. And of course, I am your favorite host, right? Alia. And I want to say thank you so much for continuing to spread the word about what we are doing here. I'm very excited. We're on Clubhouse right now. Once a week, we're doing a live version of this podcast. That's been pretty interesting. You could stop by, check it out, and actually get to interact live. But stay connected to the podcast. I also want to share, I'm loving every morning. I'm up at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, hanging out, co-hosting with the Worldwide Radio. My shout out to DJ Ali Wad, Tony Pizarro, J-Tap, I Am Fame, Haley, Nina 13, just an amazing crew of individuals that we get up every morning and bring a bit of inspiration with some motivation and some good vibes and some good music. So, I mean, it's a winner. Win-win for everyone, right? So be sure to check that out. The other thing I wanted to share is don't forget that I have a column in Aware Now. That is a magazine put out by Awareness Ties, has a readership of over 16 million people, and Unsugarcoated with Alia does have a column in there. You can check out my most recent we either put the podcast or I actually wrote a personal contribution last month about my trip in Maui. So that's a little bit about that. Another thing I want to share with you, August 12th, we are premiering our Social Good short series. We've been producing several of these as part of our work in the background. Over COVID, as I've shared before, we expanded our internship program to include young creatives from colleges around the world who were largely isolated and sent back home due to COVID. With us, they have an opportunity to create socially conscious content, and we are so excited to be able to release some of these. I mean, we are hitting on some major social issues, generational child abuse. We have CBD advocacy for post-traumatic stress disorder, and we have just these incredible conversations, and it's all built into 5-ish minute mini documentaries. I can't wait for you guys to check them out. They will be distributed exclusively on YouTube with Unsugarcoated Media Channel. So, you know where to go, you know what to do, and please stay tuned. As you know, the theme this season, if you caught last episode with Wesley King, you know that our season is Grow with the Flow. So every person that we're bringing on, our conversation is about learning to exist in a universe where things happen, or we don't always get the ideal set of factors that we want, that we wish for, right? Like, I can get up every day and say, why did this happen to me? But I prefer not to. Maybe it happened to me. Maybe the answer is so that I could be stronger for myself and in turn inspire another individual to see their own resilience, to know what they are capable of. That is all that we really stay focused on. I remember one time when I was younger, I used to very much dislike the saying, it is what it is. I used to think, okay, it is what it is. What a stupid thing to say. This is what my mind would tell me. Well, okay, it is what it is. How it's very dismissive. It's nonchalant. What do you mean it is what it is? This is serious. This is what I am dealing with right now. You're right. But you know what? The reality is, it is what it is. And ultimately, life is what you make it. I'm not saying that everything's going to be easy. I've always said that before. I'm not saying that we get to wave a magic wand and everything goes to the way that we want it to. But how much you put effort into the life will determine the quality of it that you receive. So with that, I'm excited to, bring you somebody today that, once again, we are talking all about shattering stereotypes. Maybe you're a person who's living with a disability. Perhaps you're somebody who knows someone living with a disability. Lastly, you could be somebody who needs to have a perspective shift on the way that you see someone who happens to be living with a disability. Because do not mistake, or intertwine the concept that having a disability means that your mental acumen or that your drive or your desires are any different than someone else. Right? We all still want to be seen. We all still want to be loved. We all still want to feel that we're contributing something to this world. So in that, I love bringing people that just really have that superhero inside of them. Too many people are marginalized, but so many people, and I'm so thankful because this is an example of one of those individuals who refuses to be marginalized by a society that can often overlook you. With that, I want you to buckle up and be ready to be inspired. So many of you out there in the world are waiting for the opportunity to do great big things, forgetting that all great adventures start with one very important thing: that first step, that first action. My grandfather used to say, a closed mouth don't get fed. I happen to agree with him. And today's guest also knows what that feels like. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce you. Matthew Walzer is a 25-year-old, and he lives with cerebral palsy and spastic dysplasia, which affects his walking, balance, vision, and fine motor skills. Despite overcoming many challenges, Matthew is unable to tie his shoes due to a lack of dexterity in his right hand. In 2012, at the age of 16, with aspirations, going away to college, and living independently, he wrote an open letter to Nike asking for shoes that could be put on by anyone, regardless of their physical ability. What resulted from that one letter was far beyond his expectations. And today, Matthew is showing the world that there is more to his story than just being the guy who wrote a letter to Nike and inspired a shoe. He has worked vigilantly to support others. For example, with No Obstacles, a project where he would offer Zoom meetings so he could encourage open, honest, and thoughtful conversations about living with a disability. Today, we will touch on that, as well as how people like himself living with disabilities serve as inspiration for inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matthew Walzer.
Hi, Alia. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you, Matthew. We're so happy to have you. Please tell the audience where you're talking to us from today.
Sure, I am sitting here in beautiful Southwest Florida. It's kind of a rainy day today, but that's where I am, on the complete opposite end of the United States from you. So
I love it. Well, I was in New York this past weekend, so I was a little bit closer, but yes, I'm back in Los Angeles. So, I really appreciate you coming on. Your story is tremendous. I know you were recently on the Drew Barrymore show. You've done incredible things that we're going to talk about. We'll start with actually what was really inspiring to me. One of the things that I've seen you say is, I truly consider cerebral palsy to be my greatest gift. I actually understand what that means in a lot of ways from my own personal journey, but I would love for you to speak from your own representation, and please tell me, what does that mean? Like, when you say that, what does that mean? Expand on that for me.
yeah, so let me want to go back a little bit to give people more of a fuller picture. So I was born 2 months premature, and spent 4.5 months in the NICU when I was born. And I had doctors tell my parents when I was younger that, I would most likely never walk, talk, have, speech impediments, and be completely wheelchair bound. And from that, obviously, I've overcome a lot. And over the course of my life and growing up into who I am now, having CP has allowed me to see the world from such a unique perspective, and be grateful for what challenges I've been able to overcome, and the strength that my CP has given me, and within my mental toughness and my spirit. And it's, and believe me, there are plenty of days even now where life isn't always easy, and I have my why me moments, and there's certain things about it that still suck, and that's inevitable. But at the same time, if I didn't have CP, I most likely, in all likelihood, would be able to tie my shoes. And And I wouldn't have written that letter to Nike and all the other amazing things that have come from that and everything else in between. So um, I'm extremely grateful for actually having CP, and I'm a big believer too, and that everything happens for a reason. So
Agreed, agreed. That is a huge, mantra on this, the resilient nature, the silver linings, right? The good with the bad. And ultimately, I think you're an amazing example of that. And I agree. And, you look at what you've experienced. So a couple things, obviously, your open letter, caught the attention of Nike designer Toby Hatfield, which we showed you had an award with. I think you've had amazing experiences with him, and this led to them designing the shoe, right? And
correct.
you've since, I mean, you've met Kobe Bryant. I mean, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I said that because Wesley King. Anyone who knows the last interview was with Wesley King, so Kobe's on my mind. But LeBron James. I'm so sorry. The other great basketball player, right? Uh,
Yes.
Tell me, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was absolutely incredible. But I, so the letter went viral. Actually, so it's kind of ironic that we're doing this today because exactly 9 years ago tonight, like at midnight, literally is when I started drafting that letter to Nike on my phone, in my notes app, and so it's another little full circle moment. But the letter actually went viral within 3 days of me posting that online, and I got a phone call from someone at Nike, and they said that we love your letter, we love your spirit and your um, call to action, and we want to help you. And they said that they were going to pair me with Toby Hatfield, who's an incredible designer, an amazing person, and he was actually in London at the time for the 2012 Olympics. So once he got back from there, we chatted, and he got to know my needs on a more in depth level than what was just in the letter. So in addition to a lack of dexterity in my right hand, I have a lack of dorsal flexion and plantar flexion in my feet, so I have difficulty getting my foot down and into a shoe. And so the first shoe that Nike had sent me, it was a 2012 Hyper Dunk basketball shoe with a zipper up the middle and a Velcro strap, and it had Walzer on the pull tab of the zipper. But from there, Toby presented me with the concept of a rear entry basketball shoe. And that's ultimately, uh, there were many prototypes of that shoe, and would they would send them to me, and I would test them and give feedback on fit, materials, support, how easy they were to get on and off, how easy they were to close. And that's what led to the release of the first Fly shoe in 2015, the LeBron Zoom Soldier 8 Flies. And actually, those are the shoes that I'm holding in my hand in that picture that you showed earlier. That one, yeah, those are the shoes, the blue and gold. And then all around me are different prototypes and some other models that Nike had sent me over the years. Excuse me. And so meeting actually so the picture with myself and LeBron, that same day, I'd met Toby in person for the very first time. That was actually in Los Angeles. And meeting him for the first time after doing everything, all the feedback, we would Skype after almost every prototype that they would send me, and I would give feedback. So that was the first time in 2015 meeting him in person, a man that truly changed my life and has since gone on to impact so many others, over the course of Fly since expanding, but and then obviously meeting LeBron was incredible. A total complete surprise. I had no idea, and super cool moment. And to always have that connection to him is really cool.
Amazing. I love that. And, I will step back and say, for people, and I mean, I actually relate to this as well, but nearly 1 in 5 people in the US, according to statistics, have some sort of disability. Roughly 19.9 million people struggle with lifting or grasping, which makes things like just opening a bottle or holding a pencil or tying shoes very difficult. Nike's new shoes remove this burden for you. And I mean, how did it really feel knowing that you were able to contribute to something that just didn't help you, but helped so many others?
Yeah, I mean, in my letter, one of the things I bring up is, you know, if we had a shoe with a closure system that can be used by, everyone, that would benefit so many people who face the same challenges that I did at the time and still do. And I never thought that, I would get the response that I got from them in a million years, but I knew that it was a chance that I had to take. So some more backstory. It was back to school shopping time, and I was looking at getting a new pair of sneakers for the new school year. And I'm looking on Champs and Foot Locker at all the new Nikes and Jordans. And at the time, there was nothing that everything had shoelaces. And it was really frustrating because it got to the point where it's like, okay, college is a couple years away. How am I going to go away to school if I don't have shoes that I can put on myself? Like, what's the point? Because I didn't want to go away to school. I mean, I did want, excuse me, I did want to go away to school. I didn't want to live at home going to school and just commute back and forth from my house, because that's not a real college experience. Um, and the fact that they listened and just how much this has grown almost over 6 years now. It's really hard to believe that it's been 6 years. And the amount of people that these shoes have helped. And my college orientation was the first time that I spent a night on my own because of the fly issues, because of actually the time I was wearing the red and black prototypes in that picture. But that was the first time in my life, college orientation, that I had spent a night on my own because I had shoes that I could put on myself, the next morning.
Right.
That's how much of an impact, like such a simple thing, but that's how much of an impact that they had on me.
Wow. So to the conversation of creating a more inclusive environment
Yes.
for, individuals who are physically challenged, what is, it's obviously very important to the people like ourselves who, can benefit for that. Um, how how do you hope that this will continue to be furthered? Like, you're now an advocate, like you said, over the past couple of years. How do you see the movement moving forward for inclusion with people with disabilities?
Yeah, I think certainly the obviously the shoe industry and the clothing industry, really the fashion industry at large, have kind of taken the lead on mainstream inclusivity. And you see more and more um, mainstream brands trying, or really going after the disability market, which is such a huge market. Obviously, Nike with the Flies, Zappos launched Zappos Adaptive years ago. Tommy Hilfiger, Tommy Adaptive. I actually modeled their men's line for the launch of their the men's line of Tommy Adaptive, and that's grown so much since. So clothing and shoes really are at the forefront right now, but some areas where I would love to see more inclusivity, two of them would be one, I think the auto industry. Um, I do drive. I'm blind. I'm legally blind in my left eye, so I don't drive at night. But I do have a couple of adaptations on my car. I have a modified push start, and some extra sensors, like extra aftermarket blind spot sensors because of my low vision. But and then obviously a ramp. So I use a mobility scooter for distance, and I walk with canes. So I have a ramp on my van to get in and out of the car, safely and easily. But there's so much that goes into getting a car when you're disabled that uh, people without disabilities may not realize, that getting a car isn't just going to a dealer, picking out, a color and specs, and driving it on the lot within a week. It literally can be like, for me, it was an 8-month process, a 6 to 8 month process, because of all of the aftermarket work that goes into creating a car for someone with a disability. And obviously, cost is a factor as well. So, what I would love to see is, um, you know, auto brands, car manufacturers really design a vehicle um, that can be modified from the plant, that we don't have to go to another company and wait, and also incur all the extra cost that comes with it. It's like then for the person with the disability, it feels like almost like we're being penalized because we can get a car and because we can drive. Well, it's great that you can drive and get a car, but you got to wait 8 months. And that's something that for a lot of people can be really frustrating. Um, I know that people with disabilities, it may take them extra. It took me years and years to even get my driver's license. So with that, then comes the wait for the vehicle. So I think that there's a lot more that companies can do in certain industries, like the auto industry. It's kind of right in front of their face, right in front of their face. Um, but that's something that I would love to see. And then TV and movies as well. Um, I think that there's so much more that can be done for putting actors with disabilities on the big screen, on Netflix, in more mainstream movies. It only increases the diversity, and it gives kids, and quite frankly adults as well, someone to look up to. Someone, when you're watching a show or a movie, someone that looks like them, like, hey, I can relate to their struggle even on the smallest level. um, I think that is something that we need more of, and we have been seeing it with shows like Speechless and Atypical, and RJ Mitty in Breaking Bad. But obviously, the more the merrier.
Right, right. I'd love to throw in there because I think everything you said is fantastic. Totally true.
Sorry,
Shouldn't
I
be
know I went on like
penalized.
a rant.
No, no, hey, I love it. I invited you here to talk, okay? And it's being unsugarcoated with the reality. One of the things that I have to point out
Yeah,
why we're talking about this is because it's always been historic that people with any sort of a disability or marginalized communities have to fight for these things. It's
yeah,
not like everybody nice is going, yeah, let's make it easier for the people in a wheelchair to get into this restaurant. No, they don't care.
no,
They're walking up the steps.
yeah,
I mean, that's
and,
more
and, that, and
headache,
that's and that's
right?
and that's another thing too. And I know the examples that I just gave are huge and broad. I want a car and I want a movie, but like you said, even getting into a restaurant, how many times I went when eating. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't eaten inside a restaurant since March of 2020, but I've been eating outside. But going into a restaurant, how many times the ramp is in the back of the restaurant, or like on the opposite side of the parking lot from where even the handicap spots are? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right,
And
right.
it's just like, who designs these buildings? Like, who designs this parking lot? who designs this building? Like, it's terrible.
Agreed. Do you have, and I mean, I really do want to dive in, so sometimes I have to ask this, do you have an
Yeah.
experience? I'm sure you have had many, but can you share with me one that really made you realize how mean people can be for somebody who's physically challenged like yourself?
That's a really good question. Um, I don't think I've been asked that before. And um, I can think back. I'll give you a couple. I can think back to like when I was in third grade, um, elementary school. My parents would drop me off in the morning, and we park in the handicap spots in the school lot because it was easier for me to get in and out of the car safer than holding up everybody in the carpool line. And there were people that would use the handicap spots that, quite frankly, shouldn't have been using them for their kids. And at the time, there was only 2 spots, and so there would be plenty of mornings where there'd be like nowhere for me to for my parents to park to let me out of the car. So we had to fight with the county and the school, and not really fight, but persuade them, hey, why don't you guys put some more handicap spots in, not just for us, but there are plenty of people that want to use that need these spots, but there's only 2. And ultimately they did. And maybe it wasn't an example of someone being deliberately mean per se. I can get into some of that, but just an example of people being a little ignorant and not really caring about, hey, there's families that really need to use these spots for their kids, and I'm just doing it out of convenience because I don't want to sit in the carpool line. Another example I can think of is when I was in high school. I rode the bus home from school, and it was in a school bus with a wheelchair lift, um, and it literally was, for lack of a better way to put it, like it was a true. Just gonna say it was a short bus, and
It's
you have
okay.
and you have full grown high school, we're practically adults at that point, riding on this bus. Um, a lot of, varying disabilities and degrees of disability. And a lot of them really like couldn't speak up because my legs are squished in on this bus, and you're sitting there for, 45 minutes to an hour on the way home. And it, it sucks. Like, so, and there are plenty of kids that couldn't speak up, and like ultimately we got the county to provide a bigger bus that was more room for everybody. um, and the reasoning was is that, well, the driver didn't know how to drive a bigger bus. So like that's but it's like, instead of saying, you're right, they're saying, well, our driver doesn't know how to drive a bigger bus, so tough crap.
Right.
And that's just kind of the ignorance of the world. um
I want to back up to
one
something you said really
Yeah.
quick though. I have to interject because you stopped. Oh, we fought. We had to fight, and you said, "Well, we didn't fight."
Yeah.
You know what? No, I know what you mean. You had to advocate, right?
Yeah.
Advocating is it is fighting for yourself.
Yeah.
It is standing up for yourself. It is saying, look, this, and it's funny because everything that you're describing, I'm like, did he go to Palos Verdes School? Because my daughter's school had one of those lines where if you didn't get in and out quick enough, they'd start honking. I know what you're talking about. And then same, they only had 2 handicapped slots. I would have just stayed in the line and given people a lesson to learn, but I mean, you're probably much better than me. And, but I mean, I get it where, it, again, back to the point before, we have to advocate. We have to fight for that space because so many people want you to be smaller and so that it's more convenient for them, right? So thank you for not being smaller.
Yeah. Thank you for getting it. a lot of people don't. But like you said, a lot of people want to, like, thrust you to the side and say, all right, well, who cares? Like, sorry that we don't have anyone that can drive a normal sized school bus on your route. It's like, that's your job. It's like, that's your job.
Yeah.
And then even when I got to college, this is something that I didn't want to leave here without talking about. Um, it was a truly like a battle, with getting, um, accessible housing accommodations to the point where I felt, um, safe going about my day to day. The way the dorms were set up, it was like a key card into the hallway, and then obviously you have the key to your room. Um, but the hallways weren't the hallway doors weren't automatic at all. So picture like pulling this big heavy fire door, and I'm in a scooter, which it's not a moped. Picture someone's like in a wheelchair,
Right.
and you're pulling this big heavy fire door just to get into the hallway of where you live. Like, it's a hassle if you're doing that 3-4 times a day, going
Sure.
back and forth. And then as far as like my actual physical dorm, um, that door was really heavy too, and I basically had to drive my scooter into it to, um, get it to stay open, and then it's slamming back into my scooter
Right.
as I'm. So just picture like the ridiculousness of the whole situation. Um, so we had to go to the school and say, look, is there anything you guys can do? Maybe we can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and put a magnet on my dorm door so it stays open. And that was going around in circles about, not being able to cut holes in the walls and all this red tape BS. Um, and ultimately, I got the magnet on the door. They put, automatic doors in the hallway so people could come and go, because, to be honest, the school's reaction was, well, we've never had anyone complain before. um, and that was something where it's like, okay, well, everyone with a disability, everybody's situation is a little different. This is where I chose to go to school. Um, and, you know, I didn't think I don't think what I was asking for is outlandish. I'm asking, to safely get in and out of where I live every day.
Right,
Uh,
right.
and
But to your point,
yeah,
those are some of the challenges that you guys are faced with.
yeah,
I want to ask you something really quick in line with that.
yeah,
Sorry, I have to change. You are very passionate about sports. And this is
yeah.
interesting. You have cerebral, you had this connection to LeBron James. I'm sure. I mean, must admire athletes for so many different reasons, right?
Mhm.
And you yourself have actually spoken. You had the opportunity to go to the Obama White House and speak,
Yeah,
and then you've also recently between the United Nations Virtual Summit on the role of advancing sport for development and peace in
yeah,
2020.
yes.
Talk to me about that. What was that like, and how is it for you that the feeling, because with sports, I mean, we admire what they do, but we also, that as a person living with a disability, there's this physical limitation. But how do they still motivate and inspire you?
Well, to touch on, so trying to think where to start with this. So yes, I spoke. I've spoken, at the Obama White House in person. I didn't actually go into the White House. It was actually in the Eisenhower building across from the West Wing. And there was a summit that day, or a panel on inclusive design, and Nike and myself were invited to speak on what the collaboration with the Flys, and that was an incredible couple of days. Um, I got to have, lunch in the Capitol as well with the senator, where I lived in Florida at the time, and really just an incredible experience to say that I spoke at the White House. And then the UN panel was great as well. It was a very different experience in the White House, a truly COVID virtual experience, if you will. With it was very fast paced with different. Everyone was put into different breakout rooms, and we just got to touch on what each of us had done um, to advance the role of, I would say, innovation and technology in sports. Um, some folks within my group have done, I would say, way more than I did um, in their own way, um, working, directly with Olympic committees or different sports leagues. Or I believe that I also had the gentleman who was the director. I'm going to butcher his title, but basically the person who oversees accessibility within New York City in my discussion group. So just to be able to listen to what these people do every day and their impacts that they have within their own realms was special and a real honor to do that.
The United Nations virtual summit, I mean, that was, you're still talking about advancing sport and for development and peace in 2020. We're now in this COVID environment. How has your advocacy efforts been changed, and how have you pivoted with those?
Yeah, I think that obviously it's been a crazy and unpredictable and different 18 months for everybody. And unfortunately, every day it looks like, this could be our new normal for a long time, at least for the foreseeable future. Um, I think that it's given me more of a perspective of getting to I think like getting to um, being impacted by different people's stories and experiences. Um, like you said, for a while I was holding a bi-weekly Zoom group with people that I had met through social media, and we would discuss, how CP affects us, how we were dealing with the pandemic, just day to day crap that we go through. And I don't mean crap negatively. I mean crap like,
That on
silly
this you're allowed to
things
say
that
it.
that we go through. That it's nice to know that there's someone else out there that you can relate to that goes through the same experiences that you do. Because sometimes you doubt yourself and you say, like, am I the only one that has to deal with, you know, someone parking on the white lines on a handicap spot? That happened to me like on Saturday. Um, and I almost couldn't get into my car, but luckily the person walking out of the store behind me was the person that parked next to me. So it all worked out in the end. But just just things like that. It's nice to know that people go through the same stuff that you do, and it's not as trivial as other people make it out to be. And it's real, and it's frustrating, and it's nice to know that there are people that think the same way you do. Um, and also, really quick, I just want to touch on. Obviously, we've all been binge watching a lot since all this started. And last fall I watched Crip Camp on Netflix for the first time, and I think I've watched it like 3 times since. It is an amazing documentary, and really gave me people to look up to in the disability community, as far as the work that they put in, Judy Human and others to really advance disability rights in this country to what it is now. And there's plenty more that we can do, um, by far. But I will say, Judy, if you're listening, you are my role model and my hero. And that's coming
Oh,
from me.
and I think you serve as an amazing role model for so many. I love, having the opportunity to speak to you on it, and I agree with you. Let me ask you, look, I know we've been having this conversation looking into the camera. What do you want people to see when they look at you? What is it that you need them to see about you?
That's some really, really good questions today. Um, what I want people to see with me is that people with disabilities are just, yes, we're different. And yes, we have different needs and struggle with things that others may not struggle with. But at the end of the day, we're all people and we're all just trying to make our way in the world. And people want to talk about equality. But I think what's also more important than equality is also equity. Um, you know, level the playing field to where it's fair for everyone, regardless of your situation, not just that everybody has the exact same experience, because the experience for one person may not be the right experience for the other. Like going back to my example about college, you could have, 10 people on your campus in a wheelchair, a dozen on the autism spectrum. I'm just throwing out numbers.
Right.
And for every single student, every single student is going to have a different experience. And every single student is going to have, slightly different needs that need to be met, or have their needs met in a different way from one person to the other. So I think that what, not just looking at me, but like how I wish society would look at us in the future is how, um, for so long, we, meaning people with disabilities, have had to adapt to the world around us. And now, and I've been saying this for a long time, since I've been doing a lot of these interviews since like February, but it's still true, is that, the world in all different sectors, schools, government, anything really, even just day to day going into a restaurant, you know, start adapting to us, and really learn about the challenges that we go through. Not just, and I don't mean just like, you know, disability awareness, because that's important, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, really understand, or try to understand, um, the struggles that we go through every day. And that's as simple as, not parking on the white lines in a parking spot. You know, it's about equity, and it's also about a little bit of empathy.
Mm, agreed. It's actually a lot. I
Yeah,
when you speak on that, it makes me think, because there's a lot of people out there that would argue and say, I don't need to accommodate you, the world doesn't accommodate me. But that's actually not true. The world does accommodate us where we want it to, where it can, for in many different ways, for experiences, right? If I go out to the movie theater and I can go in and reserve a chair that has the recliners and all, I mean, there's a lot of things that accommodate to
yeah,
us. And the way that I honestly love how you said, needing to see people and understanding. I go back to one of the most fundamental beliefs I was told as a child: do unto others as you want done unto yourself.
yeah.
And I learned very early when, I was like 18 years old and I had a job as a CNA. It was a charge nurse's aide, and I used to take care of patients who were experiencing Alzheimer's and late stage Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. These are people who were once upon a time architects. They were once, very successful individuals that, because of a disease, their state was changed, right?
Yeah, yeah,
My I looked at them, and I remember I used to take care of them in such a way because I said, I used to always say I could one day be in this position, and we
Yeah.
take for granted the what we have and what we are, and at the same token, we fail to see another individual just because they're different for the amazing, badass, superhero, incredible individual that they are because of what you get up every day and deal with. So Matthew, I appreciate all that you do, and I think that for you, you are standing up as a representation for people who have a set of challenges, but yet every day I can tell in the way that you talk with cerebral palsy, it takes a lot of energy to do things, right? Like the spoon theory. Are you familiar with the spoon theory? Where
No.
we only, okay, the spoon theory goes to autoimmune diseases where you wake up every day and you only have a certain amount of energy to expel,
Right.
and every single thing that some people just do, rock out of bed, and
Yeah.
for us it's like washing hair
Yeah.
or all these
Yeah.
things, right?
It's fit what people don't understand, and then I'm sure we're short on time, so I'll let you go. But what people don't always understand is that it can be, it's obviously can be a little physically tiring with certain things, but it's also, it can be really like mentally taxing as well. Just knowing like, okay, I'm going to go get gas, but will the person, inside answer the phone when I call the number to help me come outside and pump because I can't pump my own gas? And then happened to me where nobody answered, and I wasn't going to scream across the gas station and beat my horn and make a scene like a jackass. So I just went back the next day and I figured out and I got gas. But it's those little things that it's like, what's so simple for one person isn't always easy for someone else. And
Right.
I've touched on that a lot. And, like you said, it's the spoon theory. And it's like, this is the energy that I have, and I'm going to give it everything I got. But at the same time, it's like, understand. It's
And
just
how
like,
much easier,
understand.
right, how much easier would it be for you, which is only fair, you're a person, you deserve grace. How much more easier would it be for you that to your point, if the world just allowed through empathy a little bit more consideration, right, where we can.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. In the last couple of minutes before we sign off, where can people support you for our listening audience? Please let them know your website or where you prefer for them to support you, your IG
Sure.
handle.
So my Instagram is just at Matthew Walzer. I'm probably more active there than my Twitter, if I'm being honest. Um, my messages are open. I try to respond to as many people as I can. My website is matthewwalzer.com. You can learn more about me there. Twitter is at matthewwalzer24. Um, and yeah, my Facebook is my Facebook. Is my name. So,
I love it. I love it.
and I also have, I want to plug this really quick too. So, I have a very sparing podcast. I don't know, Ollie, if you saw that I started last year called Against All Odds. Um, I would like to do some episodes where it's not just me going off about whatever for 10-15 minutes. I would love to um, interview people with disabilities that, you know, share similar experiences as me and whatnot, or just, you know, so I'd be open to featuring people on my podcast, if I feel that, would be appropriate.
Amazing. Yeah. So they can pitch you, so they can reach out.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're someone out there who would love to be considered to be on the podcast, please reach out to Matthew.
yeah.
Matthew, we're going to have to run in a second, but thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being unsugarcoated. I appreciate you being part of this conversation. And I just really quick in 30 seconds, what's next? What's in the fort? What should we be expecting from you? Because I know you're not done.
Well, I am in the process of writing a book about my life, and obviously not just the Nike story, but kind of everything leading up to that, and all the experiences that shaped me into who I am today. I don't have any immediate time frame for it, but hopefully, soon enough, it'll be out in some format.
Amazing.
So I'm excited.
Well, I'll be looking out for that. Again, I so appreciate you having this conversation. I look forward to continuing to support you, Matthew. Thank you so much for stopping by.
You too, Alia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And to our audience at home, you know what to do. Subscribe, comment, share this incredible story, and then don't forget to come back next week because we are continuing on this amazing journey of inspiration, growing with the flow. Don't forget to stay connected on Clubhouse for Club Unsugarcoated. Stay connected with me on IG, Alia, AALIA _unsugarcoated. I do answer my messages as often as I can. And you can also support our nonprofit by purchasing products, books, things like that. Go to unsugarcoatedmedia.com/shop to see some really cool things that we've got. Check it out. I appreciate you so much. We'll see you next time. And thank you so much for letting us be unsugarcoated. Take care. Bye.
What are you still doing here? Come back next week.